Hi, I'm Lara Burns. I'm Chief Digital Officer at the Scouts. The Scouts is the UK's largest youth movement, and we give skills to life to around 450,000 young people throughout the UK every week. So I would say we're at a fairly nascent stage at Scouts, but we have got to the stage where we've created an AI policy. So that was our starting point, because we did feel we needed to have some kind of governance around it. And we've also created some guidance. So we're really trying to make people aware of how they're using AI, particularly if they're using open source AI. We've also done a survey, so we're trying to, again, find out what people are actually using it for, how they're using it, what they're interested in, what learning opportunities there might be. And then what we've also started doing is just running a couple of pilots, which are very sort of small and controlled. So one of those is with our governance team. So our governance team have to go to a lot of quite boring board meetings, committee meetings, etc. So they're using Copilot in order to take minutes, and they're, comparing the amount of time it's saving them, which is significant, as you might imagine. So they're really happy with that. And then the other pilot that we're doing is within the data and insights team, which sits within my department. And they have been using it in things like surveys, where we've done some pretty big surveys, like over 10,000 responses in the last few months. And they're using it to, particularly on full text question analysis, to be able, obviously, to try and analyse 10,000 responses would be quite a lot of work. So, and I think they've got some really good results, again, with a really small team. So we're starting really small, trying to measure things rather than just let everyone use it. And then we're going to start rolling out more things in the next year. So as I work for a charity, I would say probably the biggest challenge at the moment is cost. We use Microsoft products. There isn't a significant charitable discount at the moment from Microsoft. And so I've only got, at the moment, we've got 10 licenses that we sort of share between key people. And even to go to 50 licenses is quite a lot. For us to give everyone a license, it would cost us over £100,000, and I don't have that budget at the moment. So that is probably, an absolute barrier for us at the moment. But I think the other challenge is partly related to the cost, but I guess it also gives us a chance to be a little bit more careful. We want to make sure that we've got the right use cases for it, and then we're not just letting people do whatever they want with it. So it does allow us to be a little bit more careful. I think our other challenge is we know that people are using open source Gen AI tools, and although we have given people guidelines and we've made them aware of the policy, we are, as most people are, quite worried about what people are putting into open source tools and how much they might be sharing, which is then going into LLMs and stuff that we don't really want out there. So that's probably our biggest challenge at the moment. Yeah, I mean, as I said, it really is about how people are using open source tools. Are they sharing confidential data? Are they sharing data, about our members, whether that's either our volunteers or young people, without really realising where that data is going? But also, for instance, I mentioned that we're trialling using tools in governance meetings, and that's very deliberate because it's in a closed environment. If people aren't very aware of how they might be using tools in a more open environment, and that's potentially confidential conversations about Scout strategy, policy, whatever, and then those become much more freely available, that is one of our biggest challenges. So I think it's really about how we make sure that people are being really careful with data and understanding where it's going and where it might end up. I think that's a really difficult one and a bit of a challenging one. Obviously, being in the charitable sector, potentially, it's something that maybe is a little bit more important to us. Again, we're talking about it. We're trying to have conversations with people about understanding things like bias, etc. But other than that, there is, because we're not using it across the organisation, it's very limited. There's not another layer that we're looking at. But one of the things that I am involved with is I'm a trustee of CAST, and CAST work across the charity sector. They've just set up the Charity AI Task Force. And one of the things that CAST in particular and that Charity AI Task Force is working on is what does ethical use of AI in the charity sector in particular look like, where we are trying to put forward a position as civil society in our use of AI. So it's not for commercial reasons. And what does that look like? And how can we then provide a voice in the wider sector? And as government and commercial companies massively invest in it, what voice can we play to make sure that we are making sure it is ethical and responsible and upholding the needs of our service users as charities? And I think we have a really strong voice and role to play in that. So I'm going to turn it around a little bit rather than talking about bits of tech or developments. One of the things that I've been really working on at Scouts is rather than thinking just about what we're doing internally as an organisation, and one of the things that I'm really passionate about is thinking about what skills we are equipping young people with in a world where Gen AI is here and it's only going to progress in every part of our lives. So actually I went to one of our youth forum conferences that we're running at the moment for Scouts at the weekend, which is with sort of 10 to 18 year olds, and trying to have a conversation with young people about what they might imagine to come in 10 years time. And when you're talking to, say, a 12-year-old who I said, well, imagine what things were like 10 years ago for you. And they were like, well, we're two. We were babies. We don't even know. And then trying to get them to think in 10 years time and what does that look like? And actually they were very creative. We were talking about how technology might be used in a scouting setting. So like camping, when they go camping, which is stuff that they all absolutely love to do. And I was trying to get them to be creative about what that might look like. Actually, the younger ones were really imaginative. We're coming up with a lot of sort of more smart tech stuff, but how could I have a hover backpack so I didn't have to hurt my shoulders, and how might I have a bug-free zone that's created over the tent and stuff like that, and also teleportals so I could go camping into another country. So there was some pretty exciting ideas that you can actually imagine happening. Some of the older young people, so teenagers, were a lot more scared and cautious and worried about Gen AI, and almost didn't want to think about it. So for me, what I'm really interested in is what role does Scouts play, or other, educational organisations, in helping young people see the opportunities and make the most of the opportunities, but again, in a ethical or responsible way. Because I think they're our potential workforce of the future. And if we're not talking to 12, 13, 14-year-olds now about the kind of skills that they're going to need to, be inquiring about what AI is telling them, or using it in an innovative and creative way, we're going to be falling foul of it, because we're going to be, the old people while they're creating new stuff with it. So that for me is the interesting bit, which is not just thinking about what's happening now, but how we're equipping young people who are our future workforce with the right skills. I think that's a massive question for most people at the moment. I've seen lots of models where, people are coming up with all sorts of things. But frankly, where we're at is, as I said, doing really small pilots. And we're really trying to look at it from a time-saving point of view. So for administrative type tasks, we're trying to then track what reduction in hours we might have on a particular task and how much we've then saved on how much is that salary, an obvious, how much per hour we might save based on that person's sort of average salary, etc. So it's fairly basic. We in the charity sector, or certainly in my organisation, surprisingly, we don't actually look at ROI very much in digital investments. So once we've got over the initial, yes, that looks like a good idea, compared to probably a lot of commercial companies, we don't really get asked for ROI, which is maybe a little bit scary. But I think it's definitely something that as more and more costs go up, and you're also thinking about the cost of compute, etc., that's something that we need to look at. As I've said, we're still at the beginning of our journey. So we've issued some guidelines. We've gone out to team meetings and talked to people. We've done some presentations in our all staff meetings. So really starting at the basics. We have got a platform which is for digital skills. So we've got some different bits and links to case studies and stuff from around the web, which we've shared. And then this year, one of the things that I'm working on at the moment is doing some training basically on prompting, how to write good prompts, how to improve. And we all know that, a lot of it is trial by error. But I think really getting people to understand how they can build on prompts and get better information out of it. So we're starting at a fairly basic level for our workforce at the moment. Very much, I think, start small. There's nothing wrong with doing some small experiments and iterating, measuring, test and learn, all those good things that we've done for years and years around other digital stuff. I think it's easy to be overwhelmed because, every conference you go to, every single thing you read is AI, everywhere. And I think it's easy to be overwhelmed and think, well, I don't really know too much about this. I'm not an expert. But I think it's just about starting small and having a go, but particularly focusing on the use cases, because I think it's really easy to get blown away and be trying lots of different tools. And, you could spend hours and hours, playing with it, as I'm sure we all have. But I think it is for your organization, it is about focusing on a use case, one or two use cases, which you can then work on and build on and improve, and keep measuring stuff and reviewing stuff. We had our policy that we set up. We're reviewing it every 3 months at the moment, just to make sure, because things are changing so rapidly. And I think that's really important, is just to keep reviewing things. I actually don't really know what the answer to this question is. I am not a future thinker. I think it's the fact that it is absolutely everywhere. I think most of us don't really know where it's going to go. And I think part of what our challenge is as leaders is to not to follow, but to look at the opportunities and be open to the opportunities, and to think about how it's going to completely shift the way we do things, the way behaviours in the workplace, but probably create whole new business models and opportunities that we haven't even thought of. Someone was talking to me recently about YouTube. And how that, started off with just sharing a few videos that you might have, and it's created a whole industry and, created a whole job type of, YouTubers. And I think having that kind of open mind about how AI is probably going to smash all of our expectations wide open, and we can come out with lots of predictions, and we can think about this, that, and the other. But actually, I guess the people who started YouTube probably didn't really ever conceive of what it's done, across the world, how people use it as a knowledge base, how people, create content and create, those massive commercial opportunities. I don't think people probably ever saw that. And I think that's where we are with AI, is there are massive opportunities. We need to be able to flex and follow those, but we don't really know what the future holds, which I think is really exciting.